First, I want to talk about the Orlando Magic because the Orlando Magic are one of the teams who, going into this season, I thought they were going to be decent. And not necessarily in the sense of even a playoff team. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I thought they might be flirting with the play-in. I saw what they were building. They weren't necessarily a team that made any crazy off-season moves. They were just a team that was young and steadily getting better and better year over year. That's just the direction that they were looking at. So I'm like, okay, they're gonna be fighting for play-in. The Orlando Magic has started this season. They're currently 14-6. They're second in the East. And they look really, really good. I don't know how sustainable this is, to be completely honest with you. I'm not trying to rain on Orlando Magic's parade. There are some things that I think are sustainable, and we'll get into this. I don't know if they're going to remain like a top four seed throughout the rest of the season or anything like that. But right now, they look really, really good. And I think it's mainly because they have an identity, and that identity is we play amazing defense because we have size, versatility, length on the perimeter and in the paint. Like, just defensively, this team is built perfectly. And we'll get into that in a second. Right now they're in Orlando Magic. They're 18th in the league in offensive rating, so like a middle of the pack offense. But right now they're third in defensive rating. For a while they were first, second. They've been flirting around top three pretty much all season in terms of defensive rating. They have the sixth highest net rating in the league, so that middle of the pack ish offense and elite defense gets you a top 10 net rating in the league. And they're holding opponents to 110 points, which is sixth best in the league. And it goes further than there because I was just amazed by how well they are playing defense. They're top 10 in opponents' second chance points, meaning you're not getting a lot of offensive rebounds and putbacks against this team. They're 11th in opponents' points in the paint. They're stopping teams from scoring in the paint, from getting to the paint. And a lot of it is because the off the defensive weapons that they have on the court. And it's a couple of guys I really want to shout out and show some love. As a unit, as a team, we'll talk about some of their scheme stuff in a second. They're playing really, really good defense as terms of just their defensive scheme. But there are a couple of really key pieces to this defensive scheme that I think make them just hard to score against. First, I want to show some love to Jalen Suggs. I think this guy honestly has potential to make an all defensive team. Like, it might be a little early to be claiming that, but if he stays on this trajectory, I think that's the direction we can see him potentially going in, or at least get a nod or some consideration for all defensive team as the season continues on. He's proving that he be a great defender. Not all of his numbers necessarily lean towards this, but right now he is averaging 2 steals a game. It's funny. Uh, Steals aren't everything. Shout out to my boy B-Ball Takes, Smart B-Ball Takes on Twitter. I saw a tweet talking about the Atlanta Hawks and around the people who are leading in steals. I don't want to say the Hawks. DeJounte Murray was high up on that list, and he just happened to say steals aren't everything. And the Hawks are like top 10 in steals right now. Or I think they're actually top 5 in steals as a team and have one of the worst defenses in the league. So, yes, steals aren't everything, but Jalen Suggs is playing defense, and he happens to be averaging 2 steals a game right now. The thing that stands out to me about Jalen Suggs, and I didn't want to get too ahead of myself talking about the Hawks there, but the thing that stands out to me about Jalen Suggs specifically is his ability to play bigger than he is. He's great defense around the rim, around the perimeter against other guards that try to even bigger wings. Like, he did it well against the Celtics game against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, trying to bully him, getting him in the post, getting him closer to the basket. He does a really good job of getting the hand up, denying what are normally easy looks for some of these guys and making them work. Opponent shot 8% worse when he's the defender and from 2 this so far this season, and that's about 60% of the shots he's defends, which is telling me a lot of guards, a lot of wings try to bully him, get to the basket, get to their post game, get to the mid range, and he's doing a great job of defending that. The other piece to that is, we talked about this last week when talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves, and you're going to hear me say this word a lot if I see a guy who does it, because it's one of the things that is so valuable when a team has a guy that can do this, and that's screen navigation. Jalen Suggs is another one of those guys who navigates screens very, very well. And he does it by staying close to the ball handler, staying close to the body of the ball handler, getting inside their, I guess I'll say, their dribbling pocket and staying high on the screen to make that screen almost negate it if the screener isn't setting good enough a screen. And if he does happen to get picked by the screen, he does a really good job of recovering, staying attached to the hip, and making that either mid-range pull up, or if they try to go all the way to the rim. We'll talk about some of their interior defense in a second. The Orlando Magic's interior defense. But Jalen Suggs does a great job of navigating those screens, blowing up those pick and rolls, and I know we talked about it last week when we were talking about Nikhil Alexander Walker and Jaden McDaniels and Anthony Edwards about their screen navigation with Timberwolves. And you might say, yo, Ho, you sound like a broken record. We talked about screen navigation last week. The reason, to me at least, screen navigation is so important with the pick and roll and being so pick and roll, pick and pop, just screens in general, the Spain high pick and roll being such a go-to offense for every NBA team. Every NBA team runs, it feels like at least 20 pick and rolls a game. And that doesn't even feel like an exaggerated number. I haven't looked it up, but I feel like it's fair to say almost every team runs at least 20 pick and rolls a game throughout the course of a game. And with the rate that these guards are shooting nowadays, the rates that bigs can shoot nowadays, just how clean offenses are, if you don't have a guy who can navigate screens well as your point of attack defender, you're going to get killed in the pick and roll. And then from there, the rest of your offense is just, the rest of your defense is just playing catch up. If you can't properly defend a pick and roll, and proper pick and roll defense, as hard as it is and as a luxury as of a commodity as it is, starts with a versatile defender who can navigate screens well, and that's Jalen Suggs, right? We'll talk about some of the rotations that happen in the pick and roll in a second. The other player that I want to shout out from the defensive side of the ball is Anthony Black. Y'all know me. I'm not a draft guy. I'm not a guy who watches a ton of college ball. I'm not a guy who does a ton of research, going into the draft. I've never completed a mock draft. I kind of absorb the information that's given to me. Like, I'll read articles, I'll watch other people's videos about the draft. And to an extent, I take a lot of people who I consider draft experts' word on it when it comes to what they think people are going to do coming into the draft. And so Anthony Black's, one of the things on his scouting report coming into the league was, this guy's a good defender. He's a 6'7" guard. He can use his length. He can use his size to play good perimeter defense. I didn't know that meant he was going to play great perimeter defense. Anthony Black this season, defensively, offensive players, when he's guarding him, are shooting 8% worse from the three-point line. When he's the one guarding the closest defender to them, he's surprisingly, because of the fact that he's 6'7", he has some length, good wingspan. He's a solid defender around the rim. Now, it's not a crazy volume, but if on a rotation and he happens to be the guy who's the person defending the rim just because of how they rotate, and we'll talk about that in a second, it's not a free layup if Anthony Black's at the rim. Like, if you're a guard, even if you're a wing, it's not a free layup if Anthony Black is the defender at the rim. And the last player I want to shout out specifically I got two more players actually I want to shout out defensively on the defensive side of the ball. But one of them, what did we do wrong, Eagles? Once again, it's my fault, y'all. Y'all know I got the Eagles game up. We record this on Sundays, usually in the evenings, afternoons. Eagles are playing the 49ers tonight. We're down 14-6 right now. The other player I want to shout out and give some love to is Gogo Badazzi. He has stepped up a lot in the absence of Wendell Carter Jr. He's been playing fantastic defensively. Another guy who's you're going to see a trend with these players on the Magic. Players are shooting 11% worse within 6 feet when he's a defender. So he's being a great defender around the rim, causing players to miss easy layups that they would normally make. Just once again, leading to forcing players to miss. 11% worse from the rim when Gogo Badazzi's on the court. 8% worse from perimeter when being guarded by Anthony Black. 8% worse from 2 when being guarded by Jalen Suggs. And I already talked about the fact that they're 7th in opponent's second chance points. So they're making you miss. They're getting the defensive rebounds, not letting you get offensive rebounds. And they're closing out defensive possessions by not allowing the offense to get second and third looks. It's really simple stuff in the grand scheme of things when you're talking about like what you want your defense to do. Force misses, get the rebound, and not let the offense get offensive rebounds and second chance, third chance looks. But when you do all of those things, you end up with a top 3 defense in the NBA. Defensively as well, another guy I want to shout out is Jonathan Isaac. Now, Jonathan Isaac only plays you only see him for 13, 15 minutes a game, right? But when you do see him, when he's on the floor, he's honestly their best defender on their team. He has the most versatility in my mind. He can legitimately switch out on the wings. He can guard bigs. And by switch out on the wings, I mean like throw him on Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum might still get his, but he's going to make it difficult for him to get his. Like he's a guy you can throw on Giannis. He's a guy you can throw on Tatum. He's a guy you look up, he can be guarding Tobias Harris and playing help side defense on Joel Embiid. Like Jonathan Isaac is an excellent excellent defender. And I want to really emphasize how great on defense he is and how valuable he is to their defense. The only reason he's not getting more than like 13, 15 minutes a game because on the offensive side of the ball, he's an absolute liability. At least when you watch the games, he doesn't necessarily, he just looks like he's spacing out at times on the offensive side of the ball. He's not necessarily he doesn't seem to have an offensive identity yet. Uh, you'll catch him. He might take one or two threes a game and it might just be a complete air ball, like complete air ball. Uh, that's the next phase in his game to me. For Jonathan Isaac to get more minutes on the court, to get more time on the court, to be able to have an even bigger impact defensively just off the strength that he's there more, he has to play better on the offensive side of the ball for this Orlando Magic team. One of the things I want to talk about for the Magic is now that I've showed some love to some specific players who really have been doing really a lot on the defensive side. Obviously, Franz Wagner's been great. Mo Wagner's been great in terms of just defending the rim and being a good defender there. Paolo Banchero's continued to be a big body in some two-way play. Franz Wagner is also a big body in some two-way play, but not Franz and Paolo's not necessarily there for the defensive side of the ball. I'm not calling them bad defenders, but that's not their main focus on this Orlando Magic team. Defensively, this team is a unit. One of the things that they do that I've noticed a lot is say the ball's on the right wing. Whoever's two passes away is almost always in help position. Maybe not fully in the paint, but has a foot in the paint. And give him some space to hit maybe his shooter that's in the corner, or maybe there's a shooter on the wing. Give him some space to him, and just always in the paint, crowding the paint to make a drive not easy or just deter the offensive team altogether from trying to drive to the paint because the paint is so crowded with Orlando Magic defenders. But one of the things that is usually a counter to that is teams are not fast enough or not tall enough to, if a skip pass happens, really impact that three-point shot on the other side of the court. What the Orlando Magic are able to do, because of the size, the length, the versatility, the athleticism even, as the ball swings back around the court, they communicate very well in the sense that whoever was on the help side, whoever was playing help side, they don't necessarily have to go back to their man. Sometimes they'll go back to whoever's the closest man to them as the ball is rotating back around the perimeter, and then somebody else will pick their man up. They communicate really, really well in terms of off-ball switching, something that I think a lot of teams struggle with. Almost every team in the league switches in the pick and roll and on screens and on off-ball screens. A lot of switching happens as players cross each other, I'll say. You don't see, or at least I don't see, a lot of switching happen off ball when the offensive players aren't even necessarily moving, but the switch is happening because the defense is so active that as the ball moves around the court, as different sides become either weak side or help side, players know just where to go to make sure everything's covered. They'll leave play, they'll take the risk of leaving the 3-pass away guy open and rush to the 2-pass away guy, believing and trusting that someone else is going to pick up their man behind him as this ball continues to swing around the perimeter. One of the things I wrote down when I was watching one of the last Magic games I was watching was this defense breathes well, meaning just what I said. They rotate back out to the perimeter quickly and efficiently. They protect the paint. Like you can, as the ball is moving around the court, you can see the defense coming in and going out, depending on who's help side and who's strong side. The Magic have an identity, and it's defense. And this defense is proving that if you have an elite defense in a middle of the pack, solid offense, like this team scores as a unit. I want to say Paolo's at like 17 right now. 20 a game right now. Franz is at like 18, 19. And then you got a bunch of other guys, 14, 15, 16 points a game. Like they're scoring as a unit, they're scoring as a team, and they're defending as a team. And that's why you have the Magic as the second best team in the East right now.